So thanks for that intro. Yeah, I'm Amy Wall, and just a little tiny bit of background about me is that I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska, where we are, and I went to Omaha Central, which I think some of you guys are Omaha Central people. Yeah. And then I moved away to St. Louis, Missouri, and I moved back here last January to go to Omaha Code School, which is an intensive coding boot camp. And I graduated from that, got a job at a software consulting agency downtown called Agape, and that's where I work now. I'm mostly a Ruby on Rails developer. I do a little bit of WordPress as well, or whatever they need. So today we're going to talk about GitHub a little bit, and just to kind of familiarize me with where everyone's at. Has anyone heard of GitHub before? A lot of you guys. Has anyone used GitHub before? That counts. That counts. That totally counts. I think today you might post something if everything goes the way I want it to go. So what about, has anyone ever used like a text editor or that kind of software here to edit code on their computer? A few people are nodding, yeah. Because I might try to have you guys download a text editor in this process. So one more raise of hands, yeah. Who has a computer here? Everybody that isn't you guys. Okay, so that's cool. So I'm probably going to hop over there at some point and hang out with you guys and work with you. Otherwise, if you don't have a computer, maybe at some point we could try to collaborate. It'll be a collaborative exercise anyway, so it'll work really well. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is what is GitHub? Does anyone know the answer to that or want to take a stab? Yeah. That's exactly what it is. It's basically a file sharing site. Does anyone want to add to that? Yeah.
It's a repository where you can store all your files.
Exactly. Yep. It's a repository hosting site. So Git is a way to, it's a version control system that allows people to contribute to code, contribute to the same code base from many different locations, and have it work seamlessly and combine it together so that everyone's work can get together. And GitHub is a repository hosting location where people can actually put their entire code bases, and then people can get the information from it and contribute to it and use this really pretty and useful interface to put it all together. So I put this long definition here of what GitHub is, and I'm sure we'll share this with you at some point so you can take the links and everything like that. But anyway, like it says, it's a web-based graphical interface for using the command line tool Git. And it has a bunch of different features, including documentation, wikis, where you can read about how to use the code that's in a code base. You can make merge requests, or they're called pull requests on GitHub. You can make pull requests right there on the interface, and it's really pretty easy to use. It's a pretty cool system. In fact, I think it's the most popular repository hosting system that's out there right now. A lot of companies use it. So pretty important to know. So I put a couple of examples of repositories that are on GitHub, so we can take a look at that. I'm going to skip the first one because I think I remember there being something on that. So this is basically just a GitHub repository. It's for a project called Font Awesome. And what you're seeing here is just a list of a ton of different directories with a ton of different folders in them that contain code that make up this program. And a couple other things you'll notice are just some buttons at the top here, some links you can click. I'm going to click over here to this issues. So this is a way for people who are collaborating on the project to communicate with one another. You can start an issue. You can respond to comments on an issue. If you're like, hey, I'm using this product and it's not working, you can submit an issue and tell them that it's not working. Taking that one step further, there's also pull requests. So one cool feature of GitHub is that you can clone an entire repository to your local system. You can make your own fork of that, clone it to your system, work as much as you want, commit it, push it to your own repository, and then once you've created the fixes that you want to contribute to this open source project, you can create a pull request. And the person in charge of the project can say, thank you, that's really kind, thank you for adding this contribution to my code, and they can merge in your pull request, and you'll have working code out there on this platform. So the thing that makes that so powerful is that it's everyone can contribute all at once. So with open source projects, people can contribute if they have free time or that sort of thing, and it makes code a lot stronger a lot of the time. Cool. Okay, so before we get into like actually doing stuff, because I really want to get you guys all with your own GitHub profiles so that you have them and starting to actually work on a GitHub project. Before we do that, I just want to talk a couple minutes about the features of GitHub. So I was kind of touching on this a second ago, but there are different roles within GitHub that you can have. The project creator is the project creator, and then you can be a collaborator where you have access to perhaps push straight to the repository, or you can contribute code that can be merged in through your pull requests. There are maintainers who keep everything up to date and make sure as other software gets updated that the project in question here that's posted on GitHub stays up to date. And then there are community members who are using the products, who can contribute an issue or ask a question or interact with the repository on GitHub in a bunch of different ways, however they need. So that's one of the awesome features of GitHub is that kind of collaborative feel. And there are all sorts of different roles that you can have. So GitHub has a few different methods of like documentation and wikis. So most projects have what's called a README, which is like a main file that indicates what the project is all about and hopefully indicates what the project is all about. They don't always do that. And then there's also, you can have an entire directory of documentation that shows users how to interact with the software. There's also, you can have a wiki, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard the word wiki because you've probably used the site Wikipedia before. Right, so it's like lots of different people can add information as they figure out how to use the software. And then you can read through the information if you're using a product or a repository from GitHub and figure out how to use it. So that's a really cool feature of GitHub. Kind of talked about all that. The third, or the final thing on this list is our pages. And I'm hoping that by the end of today, everybody here, all the groups here will have their own page up on GitHub, barring technical difficulties, which always happen. Does anyone have any questions about what GitHub is or how it works or why it exists or what I'm talking about? No? Awesome. OK, so the GitHub workflow is pretty straightforward. Basically, if you decide you want to contribute to a project on GitHub, what you'll do is you'll go to that repository, which is what I was kind of showing you earlier, and you'll make a fork of the repository. And what that does is it just copies all the code from that repository into your GitHub account, so you have basically a clone of the project in your GitHub account. Then you can take that into your local machine, open it up, and you can create your own feature branches. You can start working on things. So you can say, I want to fix this feature. You can create what's called a branch, which is basically cutting the code exactly where it is and cutting off into a separate section. Think of it like a tree. And you are on your own branch where you can work on stuff. And then when that gets completed, you can merge that back into the master branch of the tree. And that's a way of keeping it so that when you are working on something, and maybe you might make a mistake or delete something or ruin everything, that it keeps the production code safe. And then you can merge it back in once you know that everything is safe. So I promise that this is something that is extremely necessary and really, really helpful when you break stuff, which you will, because that's just the nature of being a computer programmer. So then you create a branch. You can add your commits. You can work through a feature, push your commits up to GitHub. It hosts it there, so you don't have to worry about your computer getting stolen or anything like that, because it's hosted there on this remote location in the GitHub servers. And then when you're ready to go, like I said, you can open a pull request and you can merge in your code. And I do have a link here if you guys get access to this for the GitHub workflow itself. GitHub has some really awesome tutorials, and they've got they walk you through steps in a really logical way. And the understanding the GitHub workflow is a really helpful read, I think, if you're planning to use GitHub there. OK, so I'm at my GitHub page right now. But first things first, I'm going to have, if you just downloaded the GitHub Desktop app, can I have you launch the desktop app? So double-click it. On a Mac, it should automatically ask you, do you want me to open? And say yes.
How is that you?
And I think that's probably going to work for some of you, hopefully.
Sorry.
For whoever's watching this on YouTube, let this be a note. Purchase computers for our youth. Purchase computers for our youth so they can learn. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving onward and upwards. So right here, I have the GitHub Desktop app up on the TV screen here, so you can kind of see what it's like. Pretty simple, looks pretty boring, but there are a couple of important buttons. In my introduction, I mentioned a couple of important steps for working with code. The first important step after you get the code onto your local machine is to make a branch. So you can see kind of on the TV screen on the top left of the GitHub Desktop app, there's this little icon that looks kind of like a tree branch. So on the GitHub Desktop app, which is a mouthful, that's the button that you'll click in order to make a branch. And directly to the right of that, you'll see where it says master. That's where it indicates what branch you're on. That's pretty important because you don't want to be in there making changes to the master branch and then pushing your changes thinking that you're doing something excellent. And then maybe that change broke the production build, you didn't know it, and you went and pushed it to master without knowing that first. So definitely keep an eye out on what branch you're on, just as a note. And a couple other items on the GitHub Desktop app. There's this pull request button up here, and that's how you, once you've committed your code, you've pushed your code to your branch, that's how you can say, okay, I think this code is ready to go into the main repository now. I want to push it to master so that it can go out to production. That's how you can make a pull request there. And this sync button on the GitHub Desktop app, that's kind of like pull. If you've ever used a terminal or command line interface for Git, but it syncs what's on your local machine to the GitHub Desktop app, and it also syncs if there are new changes out there on a branch that you're not currently working on, that someone else may have made, a different collaborator may have made, it'll sync that up. Okay, so I'm going to have everyone's attention back up to me. So what I've done here is I have created 2 repositories on my GitHub account. And what these repositories are is there's almost no code in them. There's just a couple of markdown, what's called markdown files inside of them. Markdown is a language that GitHub uses to create documentation like READMEs. It has really simple syntax where you can create interesting looking text. So you can bold things, you can italicize things, you can make things look human readable with pretty simple code. So I have a couple of README files in these repositories here. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to kind of show you those repositories. This first one, this is my GitHub account, and this is a repository that I created. And it's an introduction to Git repository. So I have 2 files on this repository, gitworkflow.md and a readme.md. MD stands for Markdown. That's the extension for a Markdown file. And so what I've done is I have gone over here to the clone or download button, and I have grabbed this code and I put it on my local machine. There are lots of different ways that you can do that. With the GitHub Desktop app, what you do is you press the Open in Desktop button. Alternatively, you can open it on your command line interface, but we're not gonna do that today. We're going to open it in Desktop. So I have done that, and so I'm going to go over here to my GitHub Desktop app and open it up. So what I'm looking at here is pretty much the commit history, the history of what's happened with this repository. So this is the latest commit to the master branch, which is the branch that I'm on, and I put some minor corrections on. So a couple of things. First of all, this is pretty ugly looking, which I realize, but basically what it's showing you is the diff, what's called the diff, or the delta. And that's the changes that have been made to the code from when you cut that branch to now, the latest commit. So basically, you can see I deleted, which is what this little red minus means, and I added, and then I deleted and I added here. And it shows me the entire history of that. So this is really useful when you start having projects that are huge and massive, and you've got tons and tons and tons of files, because you can't spend time looking through every single line of every single file to see what changed. You might just need to see the exact what's called the diff. So GitHub makes that super, super easy for you. And what we're looking at here is that. So I'm going to cut off a branch by clicking the branch button, and I'm going to name it. Who wants to name it for me?
Just like baby branch.
Baby branch. Generally speaking, it's good to name these something that's intuitive and useful. So if you're working on baby branch is perfect, because this is indeed our baby branch from our parent branch. But so if you're working on a particular feature, let's say your boss has come to you and said, I'd like you to add flashing JavaScript components to every page on the site. Well, then you cut a branch and you could call it add flashing JavaScript components to every page of the site.
Isn't that fit linked to the name?
What's that?
Isn't that too long of a name?
I don't know what the limit is. It is good to have shorter names, but being descriptive is also
JavaScript elements.
There we go. We can call it flashing JavaScript elements. Additionally, it's also, just as a side note to that, to be super descriptive if you're working with a lot of collaborators on a project, if you're working on a specific feature that has like a user, what's called a user story or a ticket, and somebody said, this is your assignment, like when a teacher gives you an assignment and it's assignment 4, then you'd want to put assignment 4 or indicate in some way that you're working on assignment 4. That's just kind of a good rule of thumb. So I'm making my baby branch from master, and I'm going to go ahead and create this branch. Cool. So now I've got this clean new branch, and I cut off the code exactly from where it was. I have all the goodies. And so now I'm going to go to, and a couple of you guys don't have this, probably, maybe some of you do. Totally cool if not. I'm going to have you follow along with me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this up in my text editor, and I'm going to make some changes, and then we're going to look at how that they show up here and how we can commit those changes and push them into the master branch. So I'm going to open up what's called Sublime Text. And this is just a really simple, light text editor. It's free. You can download it. I recommend downloading it. I recommend it, but there are a couple other options. Looks like they mentioned Notepad to you guys and Visual Studio. It is a divisive topic. Which one is best? I think a lot of people will tell you just don't use text editors. Use IDEs or integrated development environments. Whatever. Use Sublime Text. You heard it from me first. That's a joke. Okay, so here's what I have open, and here's what we're looking at here. So this is the directory of the project here. It's called Introduction to Git. That's the repository that I cloned, or that I had created. And then there are 2 files in this repository. There's the Git workflow, there's the README. So I can toggle back and forth, I can see what's in those files, I can play around, I can look at those. And I'm going to make some changes, and then I'm going to push those changes. So on this README, what I had a couple of questions that I was going to have you guys answer. So I think I'll do that. We're just going to do it in a group setting. So it might be kind of difficult to read, and I can toggle back and forth between this and what it actually looks like when the code is run and the markdown actually looks kind of pretty, which I'll do now. Here it is looking pretty. This is the same file we were just looking at in my Sublime Text, but it looks pretty because it's actually, the markdown is being rendered here. So let's answer some favorite questions. We can come up with some group answers. The first question I was going to have you answer is, who is your favorite entertainer? Anyone want to throw something in the ring here for who our favorite entertainer is?
Mickey Mouse.
Mickey Mouse. Anybody want to refute that or add a different Mickey Mouse? Mickey Mouse it is. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to answer the question. Now that I have cut my branch on my GitHub Desktop app, I'm going to create a new file in this code base in my Sublime Text editor with our answer to this question, Mickey Mouse. Who is indeed someone who transcends time, Mickey Mouse. Still popular, even to this day. Who is our favorite entertainer? Mickey Mouse. Awesome. And I'm going to save this file. Awesome. And maybe we'll add some markdown here. So I think 1 $ makes this bold, and 3 $signs makes that less bold. Awesome. Okay. So basically, super simple. Just create a new file, added some code in there. This will be more sophisticated code in other projects, but for right now, it's just our answer to who our favorite entertainer is. So I'm going to pop back over to my GitHub Desktop app, and you'll notice it looks a little different than it did before. So I'm hovered over my uncommitted changes, and I'm looking at what our changes are. And you can see in green, we added a file with some info on it. And it's kind of showing that to you. Pretty straightforward. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit this to the code base. And then if everyone's in agreement, we'll merge it into master, and we'll have it there. So I'm going to form a commit message here. Again, this is pretty important for this to be descriptive. People, oftentimes you can go back through commit messages, find a place where code has broken, maybe you forgot yourself 6 months down the road, is it going to remember what you did 6 months ago? So it's important to make these as descriptive as possible. So anyone want to take a stab at a good, solid commit message about what we just did here? Added answer, maybe? How about adds answer to entertainer question? Awesome. And I'm going to click commit to baby branch, and that code has been committed. Awesome. Pushing the publish button here. And now, okay, so now I've toggled back over to live GitHub user interface. And I don't know if everyone can see this okay, but here's our baby branch. It got pushed up. I committed it on the desktop app, and I clicked, I put my little commit message in there, and then I put, push this up to GitHub on its branch. And now at the remote location, there's a branch that's tracking with my local branch that has these same changes. So now if the boss comes in and says, okay, what's your name? Colin. What's your name? No, Jesse, I want you to go help Colin with baby branch because we really need some work. We don't think Mickey Mouse is the best entertainer. We need a different entertainer. You can go ahead and go to the remote, which is GitHub, and pull it down and make the changes on your local branch. Thanks, guys, for being my team there. Awesome. Okay, so the final thing that we're going to do now that, well, let's take it to a vote. So have we decided, are we good? Are we satisfied? Is this branch complete? Have we sufficiently answered the question who our favorite entertainer is? I know those are silly questions, but when you are working on code, sometimes it's really super helpful to take a step. Yeah?
Do we have to commit it from the desktop location before we can access it online then?
Yes. Yeah, so there's two different steps there, and I kind of rushed through the second one. You have to make a commit, and it creates local commits in your local machine. And then when you're ready to push that code up, even if it's just still on its separate branch, what I did was I pressed the, there was a button that said publish. It's not there now because I don't have any changes, but there's a button that said publish. And that's actually, when you're using a command line interface, the word for that is push. And basically it just pushes your local changes onto the remote, which is Git. Yeah.
What did you do to when you were in Sublime?
Uh-huh. Oh, okay. So to kind of actually really not much. So when I've opened on my local, I've told my local machine that I wanted to open this directory, which is a file, a folder that I have on my computer with all my code in it. And so I've opened that here in my desktop app. And then I've also opened that same directory in Sublime Text, which you open I'll toggle back to that. I open that same one there. So making changes to that, Git will notice. The changes, then the diff will be noticed by GitHub. So I didn't really have to do much. Does anyone have any other questions about that? I know there was a lot kind of in that process, but cool. I think the most important takeaways are, committing in a way that is logical to you and makes sense, so that you can keep track of the work that you're doing and the progress that you're making, and then pushing in a timely way to make sure that the code that you've written is pushed to a remote source and is protected and is useful to other collaborators who might want to pull it down and use it. Awesome. So going back to my desktop app, I've decided that I would like to make a pull request, which is basically a request to the owner of the project saying, I want to merge this code into master and have it be on the production branch. It's ready to go. Ready to merge this branch in. So I'm going to do that by clicking on this pull request button at the top right of the screen. And it's asking me to kind of put in a little bit about what I want to call the pull request. So I'm going to leave it the same as the commit message because that makes sense. And I'm going to send the pull request. Cool. So now I've gone back to my repository and I have refreshed the screen. And perhaps you'll notice that underneath this pull requests tab, the number's 1 because we just added our pull request. So I'm going to hover back over to that, and just right there, just like we put it in there, there's our answer to the entertainer question. You can look through if you want without on your local machine. If you just want to look through it on GitHub, you can totally do that. So I'm going to click here, and this is showing me basically a list of all the things that have happened in this pull request. So this is showing that I want to merge my baby branch into master. And it even lists out the commits. So if I want to look at, okay, what did you do in this branch that you want to merge into master? What's the change to your code? I click over here to the commits, and in using this interface here, I can go ahead and click in, and it'll show me that div I was talking about from before where we added this question. So you can kind of analyze, look at stuff on here. If there are multiple files, it'll just show you in a really easy way kind of the changes that have been made to each file. There's only one file on this, so it doesn't really show this very well, but you can also browse through all the files of the project and look at them all here on the user interface. So a lot of it you don't even need a text editor sometimes. Okay, so we've decided that we like this and it's going to work. So I'm choosing to go ahead and merge in this request, and it's asking me if I want to confirm it. I'm going to say confirm. Awesome. So now we've merged in our answer. Our answer, Mickey Mouse, is now in our production code. And if we go back to the code, we'll be able to see that I've merged this in, and Mickey Mouse is our answer. Does anyone have any questions about kind of what any of this means or anything like that? Cool. Okay. So I do want to walk you through one more really, really cool feature. It's one of my favorite features of GitHub. And I'm going to do that again together. So let me get a couple of things organized. I'm going to just take a minute. You can have like a little break. I'm going to get a couple of things organized, and then we'll start again we're going to create our own little website. Okay, guys, I'm going to pull you back, and I'm going to have you join me on our last little endeavor. And I think we're going to create a website that you guys can share with anyone that you want. You can share it with your family. You can share it with friends. You can do whatever you want. So GitHub has this feature called GitHub Pages, and basically what that means is it will host some of your code for you. So you can have one repository per account where you host the entire project there. And then you can also have an unlimited number of project pages. So for each repository you have, you can create a page maybe that talks about what's in the project or gives people some information about it like that. And you can have a direct link to it, and GitHub will host that for you. So we're going to create a page together, and we're going to answer some simple questions. It's going to be really simple. It's going to be marked down again. And then we're going to push that up there, and we're going to see it be live. So I have this second repository that I've created, which is just really simple. Again, it's just one file. Yes, it's just, okay, it's a couple more files than one file, but there's one important file, and that's the README, and that's got some information in it. The README is here. I put in some questions. They're really simple. Basically, who you are, what your grade is, what school you go to, what hobbies, what goals, what final project. We'll kind of work through and answer those questions, and let's push them up and have them and put them on a site so that we can look at them. So I've cloned this already to my desktop app, and I have it open right here, so you can see it. I'm on the master branch, looking at my code. I added those changes like 1 hour ago, so I put them all there. You can see the diff. So let's cut off a branch where we're going to answer these questions. Who wants to name our branch? Nobody wants to name our branch? Questionnaire branch. That's not how you spell questionnaire. Okay, so I've created our branch. We've got this open. And now I'm going to open this up in my text editor. I'm going to try. That's old. That's even older.
we're thinking of things like you go inside the pages. And so
That was ineffective. Okay, so I got this open now. Took me a second. So let's get a couple of these questions answered. I know we only have about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get this page up and created. So anyone, I'm going to kind of just yell it out, and if anyone has an answer they want to contribute, please do so. General age, I'm guessing, is what? 16? 17?
12. 18.
Oh, I think you're lying. 18? All right, 18 it is. Probably 16 to 18. So what's the name of your what's the name of the group? It's do it, bring it on. Bring it on. Have you guys seen that movie? I know it's old. Super funny. Okay, anybody have some exciting hobbies they want to list here? Something they want to tell somebody about? It's going to be on our cool site. Anyone play soccer? Anyone do gymnastics? Tennis. Anyone do theater? Drama? We got a drama guy over there. Counts. What about lacrosse? Is that a thing here?
Actually, we do have a lacrosse team in Lincoln.
That counts. Lacrosse is going on here. This can be changed. Version control is important. This can be changed. Okay. So we've added. I'm going to add one of my hobbies. I like to do yoga. I'm going to add that in here. Anybody want to add something that they do in their free time? We got something. Procrastinate. I like that. That's funny. I did. Thanks. Procrastinate. Like that. Anybody have their eyes set on something they want to do when they graduate? Develop video games. We'll do the last one. Okay. So I've got some changes made here. I just popped back over to my desktop app. You'll see the changes, some of which are kind of silly because I couldn't type very well for a moment there. But so we've added all of our hobbies. We've answered these questions, and now we're ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and push these changes up. I'm going to make a commit. I'm going to commit my changes, save them on my local machine in my version control. Anyone want to name our commit? Answers, questions? How about that? Okay, I went ahead and committed that to the branch. Now I'm going to go over here to write and push publish, which is, as was mentioned earlier, kind of like push if you're using a command line interface. So I'm publishing those changes. And I'm going to pop back over to my GitHub interface and refresh the page. And there is my branch that shows the questions we just answered. I'm going to take a look at that and see what's going on. Looks like I like all the changes that have been made. So I'm going to create a pull request. I'm doing this a little differently than I did the first time. The first time what I did was I created the pull request from directly within my desktop app. Now I'm going to create it straight from here because I'm the owner of this project and I can do that. Okay, and I've decided that the code looks great. I want to merge it in. I'm going to go ahead and merge the pull request. Anyone have any questions about what all those things I just did mean? Like what any of it? Yeah.
So essentially what you do is you create a branch where you copies the files, you create changes, and then you merge the files back into the main.
Exactly.
So it's basically just like making changes without affecting the original copy in case something goes horribly wrong.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what we're doing. And the other component of that is that it's possible that multiple different collaborators will be working on the same files at the same time. And so it's important to keep your changes separated from what other people might be doing. Otherwise, it'll just turn into a mess. A couple other items that we didn't get a chance to focus on right now, but that will become important to you, is making sure that you keep your local master branch updated to make sure that you're pulling in everyone else's changes the same way that you're pushing out your changes. Did you have a question too?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're almost done here. What we're going to do is now that we've committed these changes, I'm going to put them on onto a page so that people can see them and we can look at them. All of our exciting answers about procrastination and lacrosse. And the way that I'm going to, now that this is merged in, what I'm doing is I'm here on my GitHub page, I'm looking at my repository, and I'm going to go over to the settings tab on the right. And down a little ways down the page, there's this little box for GitHub Pages. And that's what I was telling you about where you can host your own site. Each repository, you can have up to a page that shows information about the project or whatever you want it to have on it. And so it's asking me here which source I want the site to be, and I'm saying I want it to be the master branch. I've selected that, I've saved it. If we wanted to keep it, if we had wanted to, not merged our changes in, kept them on our separate branch, and had that been the branch that we used here. But we decided not to do that. We're going to put it on the master branch. That's good best practice. And I'm clicking the launch the automatic generator. Super, super easy, super simple. It comes up with some boilerplate code that you can use. But I went ahead and loaded in our information from our README that we just edited with our answers to our questions. And it shows our hobbies, tennis, drama, lacrosse, yoga. Not sure how accurate that is based on our responses, but it's working for now. It shows all our stuff, and I'm going to click that's great, continue the layouts. Anyone have strong feelings? They've got a couple of options for you here. You can also do your custom one, but GitHub likes to be super helpful, so they've offered some suggestions. I was using this one before. Anyone have opposition? No opposition? Okay. So we're going to use the slate. This is what it's going to look like, and I'm going to click publish. Cool. So as simple as that, as easy as that, we now have created a website in like 2 minutes. It's off of my GitHub page. And so if I go to this link right here, there we are. And you can share that with anyone you want. You can put it on your Facebook, Twitter. You can share it with your parents. If you're working on a project that's a little more, that's exciting to you, or that you want help on, or that you want to share, you can use this feature of GitHub. And I'll share this link with you guys. Yeah. So the single page, you can do one per project on your GitHub account, but you can also have a multi-page site, and that's one per account. Yep. Mm-hmm. They're all linked off of your one repository. Yeah. So if you can have you literally have unlimited. I don't know if GitHub would ever tell you that you had to stop. Maybe one day, but for the most part, I don't think anyone's ever hit that max. So that's pretty much the basic rundown. There's a lot that we had to kind of gloss over. GitHub, Git itself can be kind of tricky. GitHub, however, is really not. It's really exciting, and it's an awesome way to kind of look at what's going on out there. You can jump right into code that's being used in production. Sometimes maybe right now you look at the code and it'll just be crazy and there'll be a lot to it, but it's exciting because it's a fun way to learn. So I encourage you, there's some super fun GitHub accounts. There's one that's just taco recipes. It's just like hundreds and hundreds of taco recipes, and people commit them and he merges them in so you can clone that and have like a ton of taco recipes. Yeah?
So where would you suggest that I go to learn Git? Because right now everything I know is off this one README file.
Sure.
And so when I look up stuff online, it like gives me things really complex and probably not like the opposite of what I need.
Yeah.
Because it's Git. But is there like one like source that you think would be good for me to look at?
To learn Git? Yeah, there are a couple different ways to learn Git. So Git itself is different. That's a version control system, and that's kind of what you can use in your command line interface. Git has a number of different commands that you can use to interact directly with GitHub. I would start with the GitHub documentation because they've got some awesome stuff on there. It's really helpful. And then I also know that Code Academy has a pretty cool free course that you can go through that'll teach you a little bit. Yeah. Any other questions before we wrap this up? I recommend cloning or using the GitHub Desktop app to grab the taco-loving repository to your local machine because it's very funny. Cool. Okay. Thanks for listening.